My Lords, I start off with my declaration, which is in the registry, that my wife and I own 5 one-bedroom flats in the next door house to us, and we've been renting out those flats for the last 30 years. My Lords, as we approach the 125 amendments now tabled for report, and before I move amendment number 1, I suggest we take stock where we are after 7 days of committee. I start by giving praise to my noble friend, the Minister. She was always, throughout committee, very well briefed. She conducted every amendment with great politeness, naming and thanking every speaker who spoke. She was always available to have meetings and discussions about the bill. And I know too, from her days as a councillor in Stevenage, her great concern that the renting legislation, the landlord and tenant legislation, shouldn't make families homeless, and she feels that very strongly. So thank you, Sharon. My Lords, there has been, however, a big problem. Out of the 300 odd amendments taken in committee, the government did not exceed a single amendment. And I think I'm right on that. If I'm wrong on that, please somebody correct me. It's true that in the letter of the Minister of the 24th of June, the government, through the Minister, has accepted 3 amendments. Very grateful for that, but this is a very small number against the rejection of 300 amendments. By applying normal averages, my Lords, it can't be right that the government was always right in committee and all these amendments, and the rest of us was always wrong. Moreover, in committee, there was considerable expertise in landlord and tenant matters among members of the House. At least a dozen of us had that direct experience. At least half a dozen of us were declared landlords of the good and honest variety. When I joined this House 53 years ago, there was good willingness in the House to listen to the expertise of its members. That is what we are here, after all, here to be. Now it seems the government are not prepared, were not prepared during the passage of this bill to listen to the expertise of the House. To put it bluntly, the rejecting of 300 plus amendments is not listening to this House. I don't blame the Minister. I simply don't know who was responsible for the decisions that resulted in these multiple rejections. The consequence, my Lords, is quite serious, as I will seek to show in amendment number 1 and in amendment number 41 that there have been occasions when the government has got it plain wrong, and plain wrong because it was not listening. As a Labour backbencher, I want the government to succeed, which they would do much better if they were able to do more listening. May therefore, my Lords, in report, may the government start listening to us. My Lords, I now turn to amendment number 1. The purpose in this amendment is to allow landlords and tenants, if they wish, to agree a fixed term tenancy. The experience of my wife and I is as follows. We have always been letting, nearly always, 12-month tenancies to our tenants. I should explain that our tenants, currently indeed the whole lot, are couples in their 30s or sometimes in their early 30s who are planning to own a home of their own. It therefore suits us to agree a 12-month tenancy, and it also suits our tenants to agree a 12-month tenancy. After the first 12 months, my Lords, we meet and discuss whether our tenants want to stay on for another 12 months, and sometimes they want to stay on for 3 or 4 years or even more. If we want to go, if any of them want to go earlier, within the 12 months period, we give full cooperation We seek immediately new tenants, and the outgoing tenants pay their rent as long as they're present in their flat, and not thereafter when the new tenant has arrived. Indeed, I don't think we've ever failed promptly to find new tenants, and this is because the flats we let out are lovely flats with private use of the garden at the back of the house. Under English contract law, it is the right of any two parties or three or four parties, whatever be the number of contractors, to agree what they like, provided the contract is a lawful contract. Is the noble lord all right? It is therefore quite wrong for the state to jump in and say you can't do that because we don't like fixed-term tenancies. This is a fundamental breach of English contract law. In committee on a similar amendment, there were several arguments made by noble lords that the short-term tenancies benefits the letting market. I'm very happy to adopt all of those arguments, and I leave it to me. The noble Lord Jackson was very active, I remember, on this issue in committee. But my principal argument is that under English contract, parties, if they wish, are entitled to create fixed-term tenants, and the state has no right to interfere.
My lords, fixed terms are a blight, and they, along with Section 21, must be consigned to history. That's why this government is abolishing them in the private rented sector, and that is why we will not permit their return in the assured system. And for these reasons, I would kindly ask my noble friend to withdraw his amendment.
My lords, before I reveal my answer to the question just put to me by my noble friend the Minister, I just would like to make a few observations. The central one I've already made, and that is that under English contract law, parties are entitled to agree what they want to agree, and they're entitled to agree to a fixed-term tenancy. I've illustrated, and the noble Lord Fuller illustrated it with students, the value to the tenant to have a fixed term, and it's been so with our many tenants over the last 30 years. It runs to their benefit. But my lords, I do want to thank all of those who have taken part, Baroness Scott, Baroness Thornhill, noble lords behind me, Lords Truscott and the noble Lord Fuller. I was actually minded, and it's a dangerous thing for me to do with the Chief Whip sitting in front of me, I was thinking whether I should divide the House on this issue, but I don't have the support of the Liberals. I don't have Baroness Thornhill's support. I'm not quite sure about the cross benches, but I haven't, the noble Lord Cromwell hasn't participated, so he's given me no comfort that I will get support from the cross benches. And therefore it is with great regret that I feel I have to withdraw this amendment. But just as I do so, that I believe that this amendment was very carefully drafted and did provide all the protections that were necessary on an agreed tenancy, and therefore it was a good amendment, and a good amendment, alas, is now being lost as I move to withdraw the amendment.